Hi, everybody. I'm Richard H. Stevens, fantasy author, and welcome to episode 3 of Lurking for Legends. Lurking for Legends is, of course, a live video cast in which my amazing co-host, Christie Stratos, and I talk to people from all walks of the publishing industry, mostly indie, with the hopes of providing our guests with a little more added exposure. Christie and I encourage viewers to ask questions of our guests and make comments on what you hear. This is an interactive broadcast, so don't be shy. And tonight, I have the pleasure to introduce science fiction and urban fantasy author Maggie Lynn Heron-Heidel. Maggie is also the president of Whatsit Comedy TV. She stars in 3 web series, and her 10th book, Forgotten Heart, will release on February 6th. Welcome, Maggie. You sure are a busy person.
Thanks for the warm welcome. And as for being busy, I try. It just never stops in my head with the stories. So
that's fantastic. And it's like sci-fi, urban fantasy, and then your the comedy. It's actually comedy. It's like totally different. And even when I looked at your website, I was looking at all your series, and there's like multiple subgenres within those, dystopian, all kinds of stuff. It's a lot. It's really fantastic. There's kind of like something for almost anyone.
It's a marketing nightmare for me, but I love writing so many different things, and I just can't seem to stop coming up with new different stories. And my mom looked at me one time because she actually reads a lot of these books. She said, "Where did you come up with it all?"
That's a good problem to have.
Yes, it is.
So you mentioned your mother, and I know you do these Whatsit comedy shows. I'm not sure what the other 2 are, but I know your mother plays a big role in the one series that I've watched on the web. How did that all come back? How did that all come about, and what's it like to actually work with your mother?
It is awesome, actually.
Yeah.
We're best friends, which is a rarity in today's world, I know. She's actually, well, I'm the president, she's actually the CEO, so we do like everything 50-50. And it's a tremendous amount of fun, and we're both kind of insane. She's going to kill me for saying that. So the comedy just keeps on coming and coming. So it's kind of like, I guess, with her being her daughter, comedy comes with us very naturally, and we just keep putting them out kind of like books out. And real life inspires us a lot, and things. Everybody's seen how nuts everything's gotten this year with how it is. So it keeps inspiring us to do more and more funny stuff and try to keep the world smiling, hard as that is this year.
Do you have any amount of improv in there, or is it all scripted?
I mostly like improv as an actress. She likes to write her lines down more. While she does a lot of improv, we're kind of different in that sense. She likes to write everything out in like a planning thing beforehand, and then she'll improv a bit on that. Usually I just go and say whatever I want to, and then we cut out what we don't like.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That sounds good. So since you prefer improv, does that mean that when you write, you're a pantser?
A little bit. I don't really like doing like a whole plot like I'm sure a lot of people like to put like this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. I've done it a couple times this last year because everybody's like, you should be doing this as a writer. And I found that actually killed my drive to write it because then I'd know what the ending was. So kind of no. I can actually show you right now. This is what I do. I was writing beforehand. It's kind of like a screenplay type thing. I write what the characters are going to say, like you would see in a movie script, and then later I fill everything else in. That's how I kind of write everything down and process it.
That's pretty.
So do you write your books the same way then?
Yeah. It's just basically like a very brief outline of what's being said, what's happening in my head, and then later I go on the computer and type everything out and put all of the descriptions type stuff in and make it sound nice. That's my process. I actually have like 60 notebooks sitting here next to me, all full of stuff. So I'm not kidding. I'm a tree killer. I'm sorry. I had once like a 40-page manuscript that I had written on the computer only, and a computer virus just ate it. It was gone. So no way.
That's the worst for sure.
Oh my God. No, I love notebooks too. I don't know. I saw that was spiral bound. Do you have like any kind of like special notebooks that you I love ones that are really pretty. You know, they can be all different kinds that I like. And I am also a tree killer that way, but I use them all. So I don't think that's killing them. You know, it's not the same.
I like having the nice ones, but to be honest, I'm a cheap person by nature. So like every year when things roll around at school, back to school time, I'll go into like Staples and buy like 50 notebooks for like 25 cents each. So they're not pretty at all.
It's hard to resist. Yeah.
Yeah. Because when I'm looking at it, I hate to keep bringing my animals into this over and over. I do it every time I get on. They're a huge part of my life and my books. My husky, Mishka, he loves to destroy my notebooks. So I'm like, I'm not going to care what this looks like, because I know at the end of the day, he's going to hit it. He's going to drool on it. He's just going to, because every time he sees me writing, he's like, Mommy should be paying attention to me. And yeah.
You need like a locked place, or he'd probably figure it out.
He's a husky. He'll get in. It doesn't matter.
So I would be remiss in saying that when I became serious about publishing my first book, and it was back in probably May 2017, I left my career and I decided I'm going to write full time. You were actually one of the very first authors I ever interacted with.
Really?
On because I wasn't big on Facebook back then. I'm very introverted and stuff like that, so I had nothing to do with Facebook other than my family. But as I started broadening my horizons and and finding out stuff about the author community, I remember interacting with you back then, and I always remember you're always pleasant, you're forthcoming with advice when I asked, and I remember that to this day. And one thing in particular that stood out with me back then was the cover of your first book, at least the first book that I saw, and that was War Machine. It had the sword on it, the samurai sword, I believe it was. It was very simple, but it was kind of neat. And I always remember that. But I think that being said, the cover of book 2 in the Destiny of the Shadows series has got to rank as one of my all-time favorite covers I've seen. Like,
thank you so much.
It's simple, and yet it's beautiful, and it's very powerful. The colors are great, and I love her purple eye. It really grabs your attention.
Well, thank you so much, because that actually means a lot to me, because I'm also an artist and I make most of my stuff. So I actually made that. I took a couple of photos and painted over it. So yeah,
that's
thank you so much.
No, that's awesome. I didn't know that. I figured that was done by a professional cover maker. That's great.
As I said, I'm busy. I too much stuff,
You are busy.
Thank you so much for saying I'm so nice, though. Oh, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just asking, when you first started writing, did you originally plan, I'm going to do my own book covers? Or was it like you looked around for book covers and decided, hey, I think I can achieve my goals the best?
A little of both. I mean, quite honestly, at the first point when I first started the publishing, I was on an insane budget. My family has had a tremendous amount of issues over the last 10 years. So I really go by as much as I can doing myself. So I study a lot, and I try. Am I echoing? I'm hearing echoes.
I hear a little bit. Yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
Let me check this. But anyway, so I try to do a nice blend of professionalism, and if I can do it myself, I study and study and study and try to do the best I can. So thank you so very much for saying it looks good. That's good to hear. I recently actually changed out the first War Machine cover because I found that
I noticed that. Yes.
People were, as they say with author politics and all that, the genre should say what the book is, and everybody felt that it didn't quite fit the genre of the book. So I tried to see if that would make any difference with people, because people were going into it expecting one thing and they would find another. They liked it still, but see what it did. So
yeah, for sure. That's a very tough call, getting the cover right.
Yeah.
We fall in love with their covers, and then we find out that it's not the right cover for the genre, and you go, wow. So.
Yeah, and it's funny because some people like one and some people like the other, and then they go back and forth hating it and can't please everybody.
No, you certainly can't do that.
You guys find that with your covers, or?
Oh, for sure.
It's hard, we were talking before the show, and I was saying that I write, in the Victorian era, but it's also suspense, and it's really tricky to capture that. I didn't want it to look like everyone else's, but at the same time, you kind of need it to a degree. So when I first started out and did my book cover, I didn't do my own book cover. I hired somebody, but more recently I've gotten into doing my own book covers, and it's very rewarding. So I'm, I totally understand what you're saying, Maggie. And, I got my first one done, and I wanted something very original, and I got it done. And now all these years later, I'm wondering, should I redo it? I don't know if it really fits suspense today at all. Maybe if I redid it, it would attract a different audience or something like that. Just like what you're saying, even just the age of the book can change what you think about the cover.
If you wanted to do that, I would actually recommend it, because I did that with one of my other books, Wings of Caligo, and it stagnated. And when I did it, the sales went straight up again. So it's worth a try.
Nice. Yeah.
I actually had somebody earlier in the week say to me, I hated the first cover. When you change it, then I bought the book. So sometimes it'll win over customers again. So
that's good to know. Thank you. Thanks for telling me that. It makes me feel better, actually.
No worries. Hey, if you don't like it, you can always try to change it back.
Sure.
Back on Amazon again. Goodreads is the only thing, though, because you can't change it on Goodreads. So I don't know.
They
Oh,
have
really?
their
You have
own-
to unpublish and publish it again? Then, yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry. You there was that comment that said covers are so important, so good for you, so good for you. That is awesome. Just wanted to make sure you saw that.
Okay. Yeah. I was wondering what it was when it popped up. I was trying to see you guys. Hi, Wanda.
So I know that you said before that doing so many genres and subgenres as well, very diverse books, is a marketing nightmare to some degree.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested to hear you talk more about that because it is such a big issue in, the community. Should I just stick with one, genre? But what if I love multiple genres and write them well? Should I not? Is it going to hurt me? So like, tell us about your experience with marketing.
Marketing aside, I'm gonna go back to it. Trust me. I've actually had a number of my readers say, "I love how diverse your books are." So when you find your audience and they say, "I love that every time I go into one of your books, they're going to be similar themes, but it's going to be a new adventure." If your audience in the genre you write is okay with that, or across the multiple genres, then I'd say go for it. If not, and if somebody really wants to success and have like book after book after book after book just hit the top of the charts, then maybe not. It depends on the author, really. I found that since I do so many diverse things, filmmaking and all that, I have a really insanely diverse audience, so it works okay for me. Like people will come in from my film company saying, "It's Maggie Lynn, she's going to be crazy," and then they dump my books and they're like, "Oh my God, this is not the same person I'm reading, is it?" So if people can hang on board with that, it's one thing. So like on Facebook, people will see different things from me. So in the end, my audience wound up being diverse, so they're okay with it. A lot of people, though, when you're starting out as an author, I would recommend trying to stay in the same vein for a while, just a little while, to get kind of rapport, and then kind of branch out. I might have actually done that in the first place if I had known at the beginning, but I kind of like being diverse at this point because I get bored easily. All of those 60 million notebooks I've got, when I get bored with one and I get writer's block, I move to a different one. That's what I do. So
that's good.
That works for me.
So you have that. So do you have like one Facebook page, one newsletter, like just one everything for all your books?
I have one newsletter and I do have one Facebook page. Yeah. I found that like doing different pen names and stuff like that. I'd actually tried that for all of the comedy stuff I did with different characters, and it just did not work at all. So I said, I'm not going to do this for my books, or everybody's going to be crazily confused. So all one thing for me. So like on my author page, I try to keep very professional and all of that. On my personal pages and like the comedy pages, Crazyville comes out. So, it's important at this point, I think, speaking as an actress, people think they have to be so, to stand a certain way online and all that. And at this point, there are so many people trying on social media to be something that they're not. And if you can manage it for your author persona, I know that's a big thing for like if you're an erotic author, not an erotic author, erotica, I should say. Whatever, you get the idea. Some people, they don't want to see who they are because they have a day job. That's one thing. But if you're looking to put your persona forth and make yourself a brand, I would say to be true to yourself and just go with it. And if you want to put a fake name on it, that's one thing. But yeah, I don't recommend anybody unless they're like doing that like special pain. I just keep a pen name. You get the idea, be yourself online and be yourself with your brand, and people come to you for that. That's my opinion. I know a lot of people will disagree with that, but I think that's important because, not to bring my animals into it again, I find that a lot of things I post about personally are things that actually bring readers in. Like, I'll post my animals. I actually have, on my Instagram, my husky a lot. I say that he's my beta reader. And all of that stuff, make a joke out of it, and people love it. My cat, I say he's the critic because he sits there and glares at me all day, and people go for it. And whatever you're looking for in your audience, sometimes you yourself will bring them in. And when it comes to doing things on Amazon and stuff like that, that's an entirely different thing with keywords and all of that. And you don't really have your persona on there. But from a social media perspective, which is where I do a tremendous amount of my marketing, stuff like that, just being online, I think that's very important because then people know who you are instead of trying to be somebody and Kardashian and all that type of stuff, pretending to be something you're not. So
I think that's great advice.
So speaking of genres, there's so many different fantasy genres.
Yes.
Like, I think there's as many fantasy genres as there are other genres combined. And
Yeah.
so for anyone who's not understanding the terms, what exactly is urban fantasy? Why is it different from, let's say, J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings or
That's
epic
where
fantasy?
your characters kind of live in that kind of a fantasy, really high fantasy world, right? I'm a big fan
That's
of
right.
the
Yep.
Lurker, right?
Yes.
And I would say that urban fantasy is, well, a very, very bad analogy for it is think Twilight, vampires and all of these physical creatures in the planet we're on right now, type of thing. And it can branch out from there, but thinking of all the fantasy creatures or magic or Harry Potter is slightly urban fantasy in a certain way. I mean, it's a different universe, but think kind of along that lines. And it kind of intersects with paranormal as a genre. People say that that's an entirely different genre. I kind of skate back and forth in that for them. Kind of, they say like paranormal is vampires and witches and all that. And urban fantasy, I think, is a lot more open in a certain way because you can make it like anything. Like in my case, talking cats, all sorts of crazy stuff in it, and you can get away with it.
But cats don't talk for real?
Well, mine does.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Theora, the character I'm talking about, like, is a telepath, so she can like speak with her mind and stuff like that. She is so sassy, it's ridiculous, and you can get away with that in urban fantasy. Where like if you put it in many other genres, people look and say this is stupid, it's insane.
Yes,
but urban fantasy, they love it. So
that's interesting. You mentioned the difference between paranormal and urban. See, even now I cannot wrap my head around subtle differences in a lot of genres.
To be honest, neither can I with that because this is a funny story actually. I had one of my other books, The Vampire's Handmaiden. I actually had a bunch of my fans get into a fight over what genre it was in a couple of weeks ago. And then they started trying to school me on what genre it should be in. This should be paranormal. This should be urban fantasy. And I'm like, I get it, but it's kind of both. So I totally get the genre. It's kind of like, where do I stick this? At this point, Amazon has kind of made so many genres.
No, for sure.
I don't know if they keep track of them. I mean, I looked the other day and I saw it was like superhero sci-fi, and I said to myself, is that a genre? I guess it is now. And at this point, that wasn't around when I first released War Machine. So it's like, so is it in the wrong category now, or I don't know.
If you want to really blow your mind, go to bestfantasybooks.com, and they have this enormous list of like all the subgenres you can think of.
Oh yeah, well, I should do that. Yeah,
it's mind blowing.
I'm actually gonna have to write that down because that's a good idea. I'll look at that.
Yeah. And I don't know if this happened to either of you, but how you mentioned Amazon categories and like changing what's available and where your book should be. A while ago, at least one of my books got kicked out of all of its categories except for 2 for no reason whatsoever. I still don't know what happened. And it actually ended up being I don't know why. It doesn't really make any sense. There was nothing wrong with it. My account was in no trouble. It doesn't really make any sense. And it ended up that, I looked into this K-Lytics report and found out that I was able to use a totally different genre category that works better than some of the ones, that I was using. And it ended up for the best. But sometimes that switch can help. It can help you appear higher. It can help you be seen, like whatever it is. And so sometimes we do need to look into those things. Mine was an accident, but it was an Amazon accident. But anyway, it did happen and it ended up for the best. So, you never know when you're going to need to reevaluate.
Definitely. And you actually just answered question mine because I've been looking at K-Lytics and wondering if it's worth my time. And now I know it is. So thank you.
Yeah. I just went to another of his presentations. That's Alex Newton. And he's totally brilliant. And the K-Lytics reports are really worth the money, at least in my opinion. They do help a lot. So I would recommend them myself.
I'll definitely look into that then. Oops, somebody put a comment. So
Mike Share is he's asking, do you think readers are receptive to new creations outside of vamps, werewolves, and fairies? How free should an author feel to create completely new concepts?
Oh, I totally think they should. I do it all the time. Not in War Machine or anything like that, which is sci-fi, totally different. If I stuck unicorns there, people would kill me, shoot me probably. But definitely, I think that authors should be free to create whatever they want. I mean, creating new characters all the time is so much fun. I mean, personally for me, people have obviously gleaned I'm an animal person, so I like to play with, intelligence that are not humans, stuff like that. So one of the books I have in the back burner and all the notebooks over there is kind of, I haven't stuck a genre on yet, so I'm just going to say it's like high fantasy, and there's this race of, they're kind of like think like leopards, like black leopards. I'm not sure exactly what the clinical term is for them, with like black feathered wings and all of these insane things that I'm coming up with, and making them intelligent and communicating all that. And that is so much fun. And I think a lot of people try to go for the stereotypical creatures, or they stick a new name on a creature that already exists, thinking they're being clever and can fool their readers. But no, I think it's very important to keep, what's the word? Innovating fantasy, because otherwise it just keeps stagnating, and then you get flat and you have all the authors doing the same thing. And where's the fun in that, you know? I think you would tend to agree with that, Richard.
So we got a special guest, special guest comment here.
Oh!
I think you might know who she is.
No, I don't know who she is. Who are you?
Someone named with the same last name, anyway. Just for the record, I haven't read many of your stories. I've read every single story and book. You guys are rocking and loving it. Thank you. Thank you, Peg.
Thank you. She's actually my editor, which sounds insane. She's my mother, but she was in magazine publishing before she became an actress. So she's legit, and I love working with her. And thank you so much for putting up with every manuscript I drop in your lap.
That's really nice.
She keeps saying another one, you know.
So is she a harsh critic? I'm not trying to get you in trouble here.
No. We're totally honest with each other. Unlike my relationship with my father, we totally get along. My father and I were kind of like two cats fighting most of the time. But being honest, when I'm with her, it's very easy to get along with. When it comes to editing, she has a question, I'm sitting next to her, and she can say, she'll look at me like, what are you trying to say here? Or what, and I'll tell her, and she's like, okay, this is something you clearly need to tell the readers a little better, so we'll get it. When it comes to sort of things, if she doesn't like something, she'll be totally upfront with me. Del Muerto was one of the things I put out last year. I started doing like a weekly serial, like a chapter every week for at the beginning of the quarantine to keep people busy and attract readers. And she started reading it. She's looking at it, and I'm like, you don't like it? She's like, no. So when I finally finished it a couple months ago, it was a huge book. It just ballooned out of proportion. And she looked at me, and I said, I could just see her face. She gets this Miranda Priestley, Emily face. You know what I'm saying? Not when she's looking at me. When she's looking at it, it's like, crap, she doesn't like it. So we talked about it over, and we started talking about what was wrong with the book. And I realized, she's totally right. We wound up splitting the manuscript into 2 books, which works out better for the author, right? Mm-hmm. I wound up adding a whole lot, which was missing, and I think that the book is 3,000 times better now, and I got to add in all of this stuff I had to cut out. So it totally works out in a certain way, being close to someone you're an editor with, if you can make it work. Mm-hmm. Some authors don't like that, because if somebody doesn't like it, they get offended. Me, personally, it's my team. I have a couple other people who read it, I went to after I spoke with her, and they said, well, that's a very good way of putting what was wrong with the book. She's right, and worked out better. Now she's actually getting that book back, and it's 147,000 words, so it's her own fault for getting a huge manuscript back, right?
Nice.
So that's the way it kind of works out for me, but I like it.
Well, actually, since you mentioned like such a large word count, is that you're going to split that in half, or that is split in half?
That is split in half. Originally, when I handed it to her with 180,000 words, I was just trying to put too much in one story, so I wound up splitting it at like 60,000 mark word count wise, and putting the rest of it in the second book, which I now have to finish up. And then I added a whole bunch of things to the first book, which is now called Elise, which means I'll let you guys look it up in Spanish, since I like to be teased to my readers, but I added like, oh good Lord, 60,000 more words almost, and I found that it worked out real better. And she had actually made a couple suggestions to it, which were kind of gruesome, and I said, you know what, I like that. So it works out. I don't really, about word count, some people are really anal about you should have this many words in a genre. And I did that a couple times, and I found that the readers didn't like it as much. So I don't go by that as much. But if you want to do like a debut book and really go for it, maybe it's a good idea. But for me, War Machine, my first one, I was told that genre caps at around 80,000 words. And I put it up to like 127,000. And that was after me cutting a bit out of it. And people like that book out of the rest of my books the best, usually, I find. So I think that going a bit longer is okay, providing you don't go on and on and on and on. And my books tend towards action, suspense, thrillers type of stuff on top of the sci-fi and fantasy. It's action. So I can do that. But that's just my opinion. And at this point, I'm a little fish in a huge pond. So when it comes to the publishing world.
Yeah, as long as it's tight, right? Tightly packed, succinct, and you're moving along with the action, then I can't see why somebody would be upset about it. Like you said, especially if you cut it and then you realize you can expand some, aspects in the second book or however that works. I saw somebody, and I think Mike Feria, who's in the audience right now, is the one who tagged me on this. I think there was an author that we came across on Twitter that had something like a 300,000 word book or something crazy like that. And not crazy like you're a crazy person, but just crazy as in like, wow, that's amazing. How did you do it? Without knowing their story. Of course, you don't know what their story is. I think the genre is fantasy. Like, what kind of advice would you give to someone like that? Would you say, like, just go with what you want to go with? Or would you say, try to cut it down into different books?
From an author point of view, from creative end of it, I would say, providing you're not boring your audience, you can get away with that if they like it. Like, I'm trying to remember the name of the author I'm friends with here on Facebook. He writes a book series. I'm trying to remember the name. It'll come to me. The third book was like 200,000 words, and he started saying, "This is a huge book." Kevin McLaughlin, I think his name is. It'll come to me. I'll comment later underneath this video. And he put a disclaimer saying that. I don't see anybody complaining. But I think the story moved along. I liked the books. From a business standpoint, though, if you want to make more money and that's important to you, 3 books is better than 1. Providing you do not hang. I've seen this more and more in authors. They'll just cut it off at the end of it'll feel like a television episode. And that just pisses readers off to no end. I know it does with me. I mean, I'll do cliffhangers, but it's kind of like a soft cliffhanger where there are unanswered questions, but there's an ending, not just abruptly cut off one sentence. That's my advice. So if you can if you can put a little bit of an ending on it and it works the stories, 3 books is better than 1. But if you're going to do that, I would say address it to this fellow if he were to ever put out another 300,000 page word book. I'm sorry, I talk very fast when I'm being myself, so I just get ahead of myself. 300,000 is big. If it's important to the story, go with it. But if you want to put out more and more books, I would say the other. I've just had a note here. No, it was not Richard Correa, but his books are awesome too. Thank you, my dear editor. She tried to save me here.
You get Spark Crew going. That's good. So with regards to cliffhangers, I agree with you. And if you're going to put a hard end stop cliffhanger, you better have book 2 coming right behind it or released with it. Otherwise, you're right, you're gonna really, if you write a book a year and you drop a cliffhanger like that, people will not buy book 2. So if you're gonna do that, have the books all out at once for sure.
I've seen a lot of romance authors doing that lately. They'll have they'll write out an entire series and then they'll release 1 a month or every 2 months. And I'm seeing that sells really good. So I've been thinking about trying to do that instead of releasing new series and stuff like that. So that's a good business move too, I think. But definitely not cliffhangers. People get mad. No. I mean, some readers have to know, but me personally, I keep reading, but I get a little ticked off. That's just me, though.
Yeah. There's a really, really big author, and I just can't remember her name, but I think she started in romance or something, and then she moved over to sci-fi. I wish I could remember her name because you'd know who I'm talking about, but
I think I do. Yeah. I'm terrible with names, so don't ask me for them, obviously. But I think I know who you're talking about.
In general, yeah. So she did this sci-fi series, and the first book it just ended on, it was like the book was cut in half, just like you're saying. Ooh. And even for an enormous author, and huge authors get away with lots of stuff that smaller authors can't, there were so many complaints and the reviews were really bad. They were so disappointed, just that it was just cut, and it just didn't seem fair. So I just wanted to point out that that's just kind of always. And no, it doesn't really matter who you
Yeah.
are. It's just not something you want to do.
You proceed with caution with the cliffhanger. I mean, I'll do it sometimes, but it just, so many people do not execute it well. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I made sure that there was a damn ending on it before
Exactly.
I left a little loose end for everybody to go on. But
there's got to be some kind of resolution in the story. Like,
yes,
you've invested your time. I'm a slow reader, so I'll invest a half a month in a book or a month in a book. And by the time I get to the end, I want some kind of resolution to make the whole time I've read that book worthwhile. I don't mind if the series goes on and on. I like it. The series goes on and on. If I like the story, I want to see more. But there has to be some kind of closure, at least to some of the storyline, to make me feel satisfied when I close the back cover, for sure.
Yep. I actually just read a series that I was loving, and I got to book 4, and they kept doing the same thing. I said, I'm starting to feel like I'm watching TV. No, I'm done. So definitely, I agree with you.
So it'd be better for Netflix, that series.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
binging would be different. But even so, it's still irritating. It's just...
Yeah, it is.
I was just getting off topic of books a little bit and talk about your web series. The series, One Wife to Give is the name of one of them, right?
Yes, correct? That is.
And what is that all about?
Well, that one actually started out as a skit back in 2011. It's basically a parody, melodrama, satire, you can throw whatever you want, of a soap opera. So we made it into a comedy. When you think about soap operas, there are a lot of people who really take them seriously, but when you take a step back and look at it kind of from a Mel Brooks eye, people are sleeping with each other, they drop dead, they come back to life, they drop dead, you get the idea. So we started making that into a comedy show, and our characters really evolved from there, that being, I'm Nopal Garter, like Opal from the original, I think it was one of the soap operas. My mom is more familiar with the actual soaps from back then than I am, barely. But she is Erotica Kane, and that's obviously Erica Kane, like Susan Lucci. And we took on the play with her character. The characters in soap operas are consistently sleeping with somebody else. So she's a nymphomaniac. And she's a crazy character in this. Nopal is kind of stuck with Erotica, just no matter how hard she tries to get away from her, she can't get away because Erotica just keeps following her. And all these crazy situations come about, and we've introduced so many characters of local actors. The shout out to Dave Launder, Ryan Parker, a couple others. They'll come to me in a second. I'm having a problem here. Just justice. I think my microphone just went out. So yes, and Rock Ryan and a couple others who are not on as often, but yeah. So they play characters like Dave is a psychiatrist, plastic surgeon somewhere in there, and all of these different crazy things. So if you ever see anything really insane going on in Facebook, that's why. Like one of our recent episodes, Nopal and Erotica quarantined together, and Erotica has a problem. She calls up Dr. Fondler, who's the plastic surgeon kind of character, and since she can't go and see him, she's first virtual consultations and stuff like that, like you see the doctors doing these days. Well, she's got a problem down south, so she asks if she can use her phone to, you get the idea, and it goes for really insane, crazy stuff. So that's the gist of that show. If you ever see anything really going for it on Facebook, that would be it. We do live and stuff.
So where do people find it? It's just on Facebook, or do you have it on a YouTube channel?
We have it on Facebook, YouTube. We're going on Rumble. We found that we've been censored so many times for no reason on these sites. We try to post a little everywhere, including Twitter and all that. So yeah.
And what's the name of the YouTube channel?
Whatsit Productions Films, I believe it is. I'll put a link under this when we're done.
Oh yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah. We don't post as much to YouTube anymore because we found that you guys have probably heard of the creator issues where they're kind of censoring everything anybody says they don't want. So we kind of gave up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been going on for years. We actually wound up posting a prayer on YouTube a number of years ago, a Christian prayer for the world, since things were starting to really go nuts. I won't go into politics, I promise. And we found that YouTube froze our views on all of our videos. And we found that continued forever after that on the channel. We started going around to other creators, and we weren't the only ones. And that's why when you go to YouTube all these years later, 4 or 5 now. You see so many of the creators that originally started YouTube, they're gone. They got tired of it. So, yeah, we're a bit everywhere. Facebook is probably the easiest place to go right now, though, for stuff until they start censoring as well. Yeah. Anyway.
I have a lot of complaints about YouTube. I totally understand what you're saying, and it's really bizarre because there is a lot of stuff on there that really shouldn't be.
No,
and there's
Yeah.
stuff that's geared towards children that shouldn't be. And
Definitely.
then they remove things that are really not that bad or not a big deal, and it's very, very frustrating. It's like every week there's just another issue with YouTube. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, totally understand that. So
I saw like a little clip on your Facebook page for Whatsit Production.
Which one?
It was well, I watched a little bit of the comedy, but I specifically wanted to mention that there's a little clip of you guys saying we do our own stunts. And I thought that was really funny because, of course, in like major movies, a lot of times people aren't doing their own stunts. Sometimes they are, and it's like pretty impressive, you know, that they're willing to risk themselves that way. But it was really funny because I can't remember exactly what was going on, but your mom was like trapped between like a sofa and like an inflatable bed or something.
We do our own stuff. I mean, we don't do anything super dangerous. I mean, she's taken a couple of pies to the face. I had trouble doing it, and she finally just said, "Hit me" at one point. So. For one of our episodes. Another one, it's a crazy scenario, but we had to go to the ocean, Long Island Sound, actually. I had to shove her in. So we do our own stuff, and we get to do things to each other. It's a lot of fun. I mean, seriously. But after a while, when you do like 20 takes, it's like, this is no longer fun for either of us. So...
Would you say that that's relatively like rare, or do you end up taking lots of takes and picking the best one?
It depends on what we're doing. I mean, sometimes first take is always gonna be best, and sometimes not. When you're particularly with stunts, you know, sometimes a camera angle is slightly wrong. So you'll get home and you'll say, or I should say, we have our different various things. We both act. She's in charge of locations, certain things, costumes. She's kind of like our Bob Mackie of the thing, and my shtick is more or less editing. So we'll get home, we'll look at the thing on the computer, and I'll say, this does not look right. She'll agree with me, or vice versa, and then we'll reshoot it. So it depends on the scenario, really, but sometimes it takes forever, and sometimes it depends on the actors. That sounds terrible, but if you have somebody who's in it with us, in one case, we have an actor who his character name is Dr. Groin. I know, right? He's a psychiatrist, and we were doing a shoot outside of an airport last year, and there was actually an antique air show going behind us. We didn't know that's going to be happening, and every time we'd start going, one of those, I think it was a B-40, would go down the runway and it would make a huge amount of noise. We'd have to stop. But in the meantime, he was supposed to be getting really mad at one of our other characters, and he was not doing it. So I wound up taking him aside, hitting him in the stomach a little bit. He's in the family, so to speak, and say, "Get mad, get." Another 40 takes later, we got it. But yeah, sometimes it goes great, and other times you just want to bang your head on the wall. It's hard work. People think it's all easy and insane, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it's just not. And in some cases, people think you are that your characters. My poor mother being called erotica, you get the idea. So yeah.
So do you audition for some of these roles, or do you just think of somebody that he would be good or she would be good for this role and you go ask them?
We've gotten relatively lucky. We are pretty much an indie film community, so we made friends with a lot of people. And when we think of a role, sometimes we're able to just go, "Oh, I bet that I think that such and such would be great for this." The case of Ryan Parker, he was a personal friend of ours at the time. I'd actually been in one of his films. Hi, Tim. and what was I saying? Thank you so much, Tim.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off. I thought you might know him.
And I had already done a couple of things for him since he's a filmmaker and a writer. We said, "Oh, he'd be perfect for this." And he's become a huge part of the Whatsit Films company. And he does multiple characters for our series now. And yeah. And sometimes you just look at things and say, "Oh, good gracious, who's going to play this?" And then we wind up having to search around for who we want. And anybody who's watching this in our indie actor family, do not get mad if I don't mention you individually. I have plenty of stories, and I'll spill them all if I have the opportunity. You know how actors and actresses are. They get jealous. I don't personally, but I found some do. Yes.
Do you have anything else, Richard, about the web series? Or I wanted to ask a couple of questions about the books. I just didn't want to transition.
No, I thought we should transition back to the books for sure, just to get back on that, because you do have a new book coming out on February 6th.
Yes.
So we'll let Christie ask you whatever she was going to ask you, and then we'll ask you about your new release.
Yeah, well, leading right up to that, actually, perfect transition.
Perfect.
I was going to say that you have 4 books up for pre-order right now, and they're all different series. And there's, so far, as it stands right now, there's February, May, June, and August. So there's like a lot coming, down the pike for any of your readers and anybody who is interested in, checking out your books. There's a lot coming, and you already have a lot of books. So I wanted to, ask you about your next book and all of these great pre-orders.
Well, thank you for asking, obviously. And God help me in a certain way, right? Everything getting down the line with all the books this year. I already mentioned Del Muerta and Helisa. There are 2 of them. They're dystopian. They're actually a spin-off of the Destiny of Shadow series, which is War Machine. So they're one. I have the 3rd book in the Destiny of Shadow series coming out. I believe that one's May, Blood War. And that's, at this point, my readers have been like, where the hell is it? So it's coming. That one has been really hard to write, so it is coming. The one that's coming next month, which was actually supposed to be this month, that's another story, which I'll actually tell in a few minutes because people get a kick out of it, is the 3rd one of my Vaktar of All Realms series. Shira will be back. For those who don't know, that one is definitely urban fantasy series, and it's very magic type of things and fantasy creatures, and Shira Hart is a Vaktar. She doesn't know what that is at the beginning. I won't go through into that because book 3 is a bit further than that. That's the first book. But in this book, it's a real challenge because Shira's hit with this spell by this evil caster. That sounds totally lame unless you're reading the book, right? And she forgets all of her memories. She has no idea who she is. And trying to navigate with no powers, no abilities, and somebody in her midst that's trying to kill her and not telling who he is. It's a really crazy book, but in a good way. And I'm so happy it's finally coming out. So anybody who wants to check that out, you can. It's Kindle Unlimited and paperback and just regular Kindle and all that. And second of all, I'll tell the story of why it's Lakes. A couple people are on here, I'm sure, wondering why the date was moved back. I have everything set and ready on it, and my mom, the editor, discovered that there was one error in there.
Oh.
And I was going to fix it, and I've done it before, like on my tablet, and I discovered that it leaves words out. So I said, I'm not doing that again. So I went to go to the computer, and the computer died. Always fun, right? So I discovered what the problem is. I was getting the parts here, and Amazon sends it to me. And for those who don't know, Amazon now sends a picture of your door whenever they deliver something, like straight to your door. And I'm going, oh crap, this is not my door.
No.
So then that was like the night before that the pre-order lock date is for Amazon. For those who are not authors, Amazon has a certain date you need to put your manuscript in before it goes live, like 5 days before it goes live. And I said, I can't do this. I can't take the chance there's going to be more errors because not only the readers, but my mother, the editor, she is a grammar Nazi. She will kill me if there are any errors. And I'm not joking. So I put it back. Okay, the part comes and Amazon sends me another shot of the door. Guess what? It's still the wrong door. So that's why it's late. And my neighbors, whoever you are who didn't bring it to me and tell me where it was, thank you so much. But yeah, my neighbors are fun, right? I think I can read this one. How many novels have I written? Mike. Hey, Mike. I don't know if you've mentioned that yet. You didn't miss it. Trust me. At this point, I think it's 9 I've written.
I put one out. I think you said the 10th one is on the 6th. Yeah.
I think it's actually 11 now because I put out a story at Christmas time, A Touch of Snow. I try to do like a free little novelette for my readers every year as a nice gift, especially this year with all the issues with COVID. So I think it's 11 now, actually. But yeah.
Cool.
And how far in advance do you recommend, like ideally, to put out a pre-order in an ideal world?
That's actually a huge argumentative issue between authors. I found some people think it's a great idea and some people don't. I actually hinge on a different thing besides gaming the Amazon rankings and all that. You want your title to be available in a year from now if you're writing a book. And if you put it down as a pre-order, every author out there will see that that title is taken. So that's why I personally do it. It also tells my readers to expect it well in advance, because while I write a lot, I don't release a book in a series every couple of months. So they like to see that it's actually coming. Because like War Machine, as you guys were discussing, that came out in 2017. Yes, 2017. The next one came out 2019, and this one's coming out in 2021. So it's very important for them to see that, you know, I did not just waste all my time on book 2 and book 3 isn't coming. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but George R. Martin with Game of Thrones, people are really pissed that that book
I will not read
out.
it. No, I will not read his last book.
So that's my personal take on it. Some people say that with Amazon, you know, you don't want to do pre-order unless you're going to like massive things because they count their sales that you get for rankings and all that. Then you won't go as high on the bestseller list.
Yeah.
So
just different ways to look at it for sure.
It depends on, I think, on the genre entirely. I haven't found that it impacts me really not to put a pre-order out, but that's just me. I mean, if you're a romance author, that might be an entirely different thing because that's an entirely different game, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, well, I think we're at pretty well at the end of our show here, Maggie. We appreciate you coming on, and we wish you the best of luck with your new release and your subsequent releases throughout the year. And
Likewise.
we certainly invite you back in the future if you want to come back on.
Oh, totally. This was fun.
Yeah. No, we enjoyed having you here, and I'm sure the guests have too. So this has been Maggie Lynn Heron-Heidel, who's an urban fantasy and science fiction author. Thank you for being here today. And next week, on February 2nd, we're going to be with new adult fiction and romance author Max Watson. So that should be a fun episode as well. So thank you, Maggie, and
thank you,
we
guys.
wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been lovely.
So good night, everybody. And we got one more comment here. Maybe I'll pop it in here just so you can see it. Maggie, you're so busy, thank you so much. Can you give a quick rundown of your average day, how long you spend on writing? Okay, we'll do that. This is your spiel.
I'm sorry, just a second. What? Oh, yes. Sorry, that was my editor.
So no worries. How long do you spend on writing and social media and advertising everything in an average day?
For me, I spend most of it writing. I actually have health issues. I'm disabled. So, hey, Mike. And so things change up on a daily basis for me, but I spend as much of my time writing as I can. When we're doing filming on location or editing, that takes up most of the day. So I like alternate days, or if I'm shooting in the evening, you know, write during the day, film at night. So I'm pretty flexible, but on an average day, I would say I spend like 9 hours writing. And when it comes to filmmaking, it varies greatly what I'm working on. So that's more difficult to answer. As for social media and all that, I used to spend a lot more time than I do now, but I try to keep them all updated. Social media's gotten kind of ugly lately, so less time, but that's just me.
No, that's awesome. So it seems like your day is different all the time, which is kind of nice. Gives you a bit of variety. So.
Your audio just went out, so I have no idea what you just said.
Oh, sorry, did not hear that. It sounds like your day is very varied every day, so it's kind of nice to mix things up. So
yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna say goodnight to you, and we wish you luck, and hopefully we'll see you sometime in the future.
Hey, nice talking to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.